Okay guys, fiber is an essential piece to the health puzzle, but can you be eating too much? In this video, we'll go over what fiber is, the different types of fiber, benefits of eating fiber, and also what happens if you eat too much of it. At the end, we'll also touch on what has made fiber become so popular lately, the Effector Diet. If you guys are excited about this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and be sure to take a screenshot and share it in your Instagram stories. I love seeing you guys watch these videos. As always, you guys, this video is for informational purposes only, and it is not meant to serve as specific medical or nutritional advice for you. If you do need medical advice for any of the topics that we cover in this video, be sure to reach out to your healthcare provider immediately. This video is provided as is with no representations or warranties expressed or implied. Okay, so what the heck is fiber? Honestly, nutrition nerd in me, fiber is kind of fascinating. It is a type of carbohydrate that the body doesn't actually break down into energy like it does with so many other carbohydrates. Yet, our body still needs it in order to actually function properly and optimally. Fiber is also known as dietary fiber, and it comes from plants as opposed to things like animal products. Now, there are two types of dietary fiber. So there is soluble fiber and insoluble fiber. So let's go ahead and take a look at the difference between those. So first, soluble fiber is a type of fiber that absorbs water. So kind of think of it like a sponge. Now, this type is easily fermented by our gut bacteria. And soluble fiber has prebiotic functions, so this type is really great for gut health. You can get soluble fiber from a variety of foods such as beans, oat cereals, flaxseed, and most veggies. Now, on the flip side, we have insoluble fiber. Now, this is a type that does not act like a sponge and does not soak up water. This type of fiber actually doesn't change as it travels through our digestive system, not in the same way that that soluble fiber does. Essentially, this type of fiber adds bulk. So insoluble fiber really promotes gut health, and it also has prebiotic benefits as well. Plus, it kind of helps to clean you out and keep those bowels moving and regular. I think we all need that. You can get insoluble fiber from whole grains, root veggies, corn, and also beans. Now, it's not uncommon for a food to contain both types of fiber, both the soluble and the insoluble, like how I just had beans on both lists. However, different sources may have kind of different amounts of those different types of fibers. Here is a little graphic that shows some of the differences and the different types and what foods you might want to consume to get those different types. I have a whole blog post where you can snag that actual graphic, so I'll link to it in the description below. Now, there are also health benefits from having fiber. So a few of the health benefits associated to actually eating enough fiber are lowering cholesterol. That soluble fiber essentially kind of works to absorb it. It promotes digestive regularity, again, helps things move along. It increases fecal bulk, and it also improves the overall environment of your gut flora. It protects against chronic diseases, things like diabetes, metabolic syndrome, cardiovascular disease, and colorectal cancer. It increases satiety and actually meal absorption. It also induces cholecystokinin, which is a satiety hormone. It decreases circulating levels of C-reactive protein, CRP, and this is a marker of inflammation in the body. So like I mentioned, you get fiber from plant foods, and I have a whole video talking about a plant-based diet, the WFPB whole food plant-based diet trend. I can link to that video up there for you, but be sure to give that a watch for some of the additional benefits of eating a plant-based diet, but also some of the downfalls and the things to be aware of. Now, fiber's great, right? We know that, but how much do we actually need to be eating a day? Here's a rundown. Women ages 19 to 50 need about 25 grams of fiber a day. Women who are over 51 need about 21 grams a day. And men ages 19 to 50 need 38 grams, and men 51 plus need 31. Now, these are total amounts of dietary fiber, and that includes both the soluble and the insoluble. The average American doesn't reach these recommended amounts. The average intake is roughly 15 grams a day. However, However, with the growing popularity of fiber supplements and the clean eating movement, like that whole food plant-based diet, and also the Effector Diet, getting over the recommended amount of fiber could be a concern for some. So what does happen if we get too much fiber? What are the symptoms of getting too much fiber? So it's important to note that there's currently no tolerable upper limit for fiber, a UL, and a UL is essentially the highest intake that likely will not pose any adverse health effects to the general person, most individuals. However, tolerance to fiber really can vary from person to person. So basically what I mean by this is one person may be able to handle consuming more fiber in their diet than another person can. So for example, person A may not get constipated from eating a high fiber diet, while person B might not be able to poop for days. This is why I can't stress enough, it is so important to learn how to actually listen to your body and not just read a recommendation and take it as the be all end all. Our bodies are fascinating and nutrition really has to be individualized. We are talking about this all the time in my membership to the society. One other thing to note with fiber is that while we may have an overall tolerance to different levels of fiber, it can also take time for our bodies to adjust consuming a different amount of fiber. For instance, if you were to eat a protein bar that is high in fiber, but you typically maybe have a relatively low fiber diet, you might experience more symptoms of having too much fiber than someone who typically eats a higher fiber diet might. So now let's go over what the heck those symptoms are. So symptoms or signs that you might be eating too much fiber are you may experience some excessive bloating in your stomach, you might have pressure down there, gas, you may have a lot of flatulence, you may be constipated, you cannot poop. You might, on the other side of it, have diarrhea where you can't stop going to the bathroom. It can go both ways. You might be feeling too full and kind of have a loss of appetite. That's another really common one. So we mentioned poop a couple times, so let's talk about that. So you might notice that both constipation and diarrhea are on the symptoms list. How can that be? Well, diarrhea happens when your food is just moving too quickly through your digestive tract. Now remember, fiber can help things move along. Constipation can happen because of the bulk created by the fiber. When you pair that, the bulk aspect of it, with not drinking enough water to kind of help things move along, well, you got troubles. So if you're struggling with diarrhea, you might want to try adding some of that soluble fiber that we talked about. Remember, it kind of acts like a sponge and it might absorb some of that water and kind of help slow things down. Insoluble fiber may worsen it since it's going to keep things moving along. Now on the other side, if you've got constipation, you might try adding some insoluble fiber to kind of help get things moving along. But I'd really also recommend adding some water in there and making sure that it's actually able to move. Now, one important thing is you don't want to just keep adding more and more insoluble fiber in there, as that can actually contribute to that constipation. Now, if you're eating loads of it, like you're eating tons of those protein bars that are jam-packed with over like half of your day's needs, it might actually be helpful to decrease the amount of fiber that you're taking in. Yes, you can be getting too much. So one study showed that decreasing fiber intake actually could help with constipation. So in that study, the group of participants who actually scaled back their fiber intake when they were experiencing constipation had an increase in bowel movements, meaning their constipation started to resolve. Whereas those who continued on their high fiber diet did not. More, again, not always better. Okay, so now as a dietitian, I'm always being asked, what about supplements? So to the average person, honestly, I don't necessarily recommend taking a fiber supplement. As a registered dietitian, I do always promote food first. And that's for a couple reasons, to be honest. It's a lot cheaper and it's a lot easier to get, and you can honestly get more nutritional bang for your buck, if you will. A supplement might be something to look into if you're not able to meet your needs through food. In that case, I would highly recommend speaking with a registered dietitian if you're unable to do that. And by this, I totally don't mean you can't meet your needs because you're on keto and you decided that you're avoiding carbs, so you're not getting enough fiber. Let's be real, you can meet your fiber needs. You're just choosing not to. harsh reality, guys. So now, how should you go about making sure that you're actually eating enough fiber? While yes, it's important to make sure that you're actually getting enough fiber in your day and your body wants it to function optimally, I don't necessarily recommend counting grams of fiber. Doing this can likely lead to some disordered eating, like obsession with tracking the numbers or fearing different foods that maybe don't have as much fiber in them. Instead, what I would recommend is to simply try to introduce a few sources of fiber into your day. And I honestly don't recommend focusing too much on the soluble versus the insoluble sources, as kind of like I said, you'll get some of those in most foods, some of each. I would just recommend on kind of including some fiber-rich foods overall and including a variety of those sources to kind of ensure you get a mix. And then take note of how you feel. That knowledge of the different types of fiber, just keep it in your back pocket in those instances where maybe you're having some troubles in the bathroom. So something that we use in the society is what I call a food and mood journal. So it's not your food journal where you log all your foods, you write down all the portion sizes. It's where you simply just kind of make observations and correlations about the way that you feel, the way that food satisfies you, and your eating style, or the different types of foods that you're eating. For instance, how you might do this is you might jot down just a couple notes about how you feel on a day where you eat multiple servings of fiber containing foods versus a day where maybe you don't have very much. How do you feel? And no, I don't mean, do I feel good for being good because I did what Colleen said? Or do I feel full? Do I feel more nourished? Do I feel more energized? How does your body actually feel? Being able to do this and reflect on how your body feels with your choices is how healthy eating, I hate that term, kind of becomes second nature and more intuitive. It's learning to trust your body and let your body be your guide. No Googling meal plans, no diets. So much easier, right? That's what's called gentle nutrition. So now let's go over a couple different ideas for, okay, how can I actually include fiber in my day? Here are a few of my favorites. So you can make some crispy chicken nuggets or some chicken tenders and use bran cereal for that crumb coating. I have a fabulous recipe I'll link to in the description for chicken nuggets, and I'll do that for all the different recipes that I talk about. You could enjoy some whole grain toast and smear it with a heaping of, I have a delicious recipe for 2-ingredient blueberry jam. So easy, and it's thickened with chia seeds, so that helps to add some fiber. You could use a whole wheat tortilla for a delicious crispy quesadilla. You might whip up a batch of baked whole wheat donuts. I love having these on hand. Or you could use some whole wheat flour in any recipe. I have a banana carrot muffin recipe that I absolutely love. You could try adding sweet potato fries to a salad. I love hamburger salads. They're the best, aka Big Mac in a bowl. It's my go-to dinner. Or you could try making some creamy overnight protein oats for breakfast. My husband is on a huge kick with these. He makes them every night. But let me know if any of those sound good to you or what kind of fiber-rich foods you might start to include in your day. Okay guys, let's talk about the Effector Diet now. Holy cats, you guys, this got some huge buzz lately. If you are unaware of what the Effector Diet is, essentially it is a high fiber diet plan that's geared towards weight loss. Now, recently, why kind of it's gained this traction is that a lot of participants of the diet came out kind of saying that they had these unexplained medical conditions that they're saying are related to the diet and the products that they sell. Now, there are a ton of claims of it also leading to highly disordered eating. First off, you guys know that I do not agree with diets, and that's nothing new to you. And yes, this is a diet. It's not a lifestyle. That term gets thrown around a lot. There's really no argument about it there. The biggest thing with just diets overall, like this Effector Diet, is it's just not sustainable. So I actually read the book and I calculated the calories that they recommend in step 1 and 2, and it came out to be about 1,200 to 1,300 calories. Now, these are supposed to be short term. Step 1 is only supposed to last for 2 weeks. But one thing that the Effector Diet has gotten heat for is that the founder is said to have stayed on step 1, so that very restrictive state, kind of a general lifestyle, and that's just not recommended. Those calories are way too low for your typical adult, and that likely can lead to a lot of the disordered eating claims that have been made by previous participants. They feel like they need to stay on that step 1, 2 maybe, and like I said, it's just overall really restrictive. So one thing that I thought was interesting was was that the book was written before the products came out, and the book does focus more on whole food sources of fiber versus the diet culture shift towards the bars and the powders once those came out, which that was in the last few years. So with those bars and powders is where a lot of the concern comes with this diet, is it's promoting products over real food, and there's also concern over what is actually in the products, but that's a whole other conversation in itself. So here's the deal about products. So I don't necessarily think using like products or powders like protein powders or anything like that are bad, but I do think that it's obviously not great to fear actual real food, like things like bananas or carrots, which are some of the things that people who have been on this diet have said that they've started to fear. Now, I'm not saying that this is gonna happen to everyone, but it has for some, and I can kind of see where that developed. So another thing that I didn't read in the book, but I heard about on some podcasts that I listened to is this idea of the 3-bite rule. Woof. Not a good idea. You should not limit yourself to 3 bites. We know that restriction likely leads to binging. It's like that red button phenomenon. Don't touch the red button. All you want to do is touch the red button. You say you can only have 3 bites, you're gonna want a lot more than 3 bites. Also, the diet seems to have kind of a heavy focus on alcohol, and as a dietitian, don't necessarily recommend that. And also from just someone who doesn't necessarily drink a lot, I'm just not a big drinker, I would almost feel pressured that I should live that lifestyle, but that's just my 2 cents. So just to wrap that little snippet up, my final word on the Effector Diet is, guys, don't do it, but you have the full right, as always, to do whatever you want with your body and nourish it with whatever foods or lifestyle you want, but it's just not something that I can stand behind. You guys know that I'm all about intuitive eating and not having food rules. So I hope this video was super helpful in giving you a better understanding of fiber in itself, the different types, and what might happen if you eat too much. As always, if you guys like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and hit subscribe to the channel. It really does support me making more videos for you, and let me know in the comments if there's any other topics you want me to cover. Otherwise, with that, I'll see you guys next week.